Welcome back to Weekend Express. We are focusing on matters education this morning. We want to shift gears now from the promise of free secondary education to the promise of a new education curriculum in the country, the 2633 education system, which is set to replace the 844 system. But as we speak, a local university lecturer has moved to the Mombasa High Court seeking to shelve for 5 years the implementation of the 2633 system to allow for broader consultations, saying the new education or the proposed education new system is overloaded with content. We'll be exploring this in just a moment with Dr. Julius Juan, Director of the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, as well as education expert Jonathan Messiah. But first, let's take a caller, Margaret, who is calling in from Kisii. Margaret, many thanks for calling in this morning. What is your question or comment?
My question is, hello?
Great.
My question is, now, the new reforms about the curriculum, I'm a teacher by profession.
Right.
We have not been told anything that is going on, and they're implementing it in January. We don't have a syllabus for the same. We have not received any circular. What is it going, how is it going to look like? Because even we need to be told and be trained on what to do. And this is October. We need just to implement that PAP in all our primary schools.
All right. Thank you so much, Margaret, for calling in. Let's address your concern just now. Dr. Julius Juan, I believe that would be a right question for you, being at the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. So Margaret is a teacher by profession, and she says they have not received any information about this system so far. So before we get into this petition lodged at the High Court, your response to that, please.
I think what is happening is that currently we have the pilot that is still going on. And from November, we are going to roll out the massive training of teachers in all the primary schools, in lower primary and pre-primary. And all schools, teachers are going to be trained, and we are going to use the curriculum support officers, who used to be called inspector of schools. And during that time, all the schools will be covered. As it is now, the pilot is still going on, and therefore, after the pilot and we roll out the training, then all the teachers will be informed of what to do. Right.
Well, is it then, you know, a viable project to begin by January 2018? Because we are in October, 2 months to the end of the year. The pilot program still going on. What time then does that give for the training program, even considering the current political climate in the country?
Incidentally, we deliberately planned the training of the teachers in November and December. So it is not by accident. We could have trained them, let's say, you know, in August. But in a new curriculum, especially the kind of curriculum that we are introducing, you plan the training in such a way that the training feeds into the implementation. So we do the first phase of induction of the training in November, December. Then we go to the second phase, which is handled by the TSC within the context of continuous professional development of teachers. And then the curriculum support officers on the ground continue with the mentorship. So if you were to conduct a training early in August and then close the chapter and say, now we have done the training, we are waiting to roll out the new curriculum, you lose it completely. So it is an ongoing process that goes on into mentorship as schools open.
And this new curriculum is largely digital, of course. You know, it's a digital literacy program, so to speak. Let me hear from you, Jonathan, as an education expert. The timelines that Dr. Juan is talking about, you know, just drawing in from Margaret, the caller this morning, is it viable for this training? November, December, I believe there has to be some, you know, infrastructure put in place, you know, so to speak as well. The students themselves have to be trained to some extent on how to use this infrastructure as well. We're speaking of the digital literacy program, which involves the laptops as well, I believe. Your analysis of whether this is a viable project by January 2018?
Well, the reform idea and the spirit of the reform is good, as it were, but the implementation process and approach that the ministry has taken is something that needs a little bit more discussion, in the sense that if the pilot is still going on, as Dr. Juan says, it means we have to make an assumption that the pilot is going to give us positive results. So we are not as a country, we are not going to be given an opportunity to reflect on the pilot and give our feedback. So if the pilot returns negative, we have to get on with it in January.
Right.
If the pilot returns results that the teachers are saying this is not working, we have to invest in it in January. That is where the problem is.
All right.
The idea is, and this is should be the spirit within the larger education sector, is that people have to participate in these processes. People have to be shown where the value lies. And this is what introduces the gap between the community that receives education and the providers of education as the facilitators and the duty bearer, you know, in the sense of the Ministry of Education. So that the Ministry of Education is coming in and telling you as a community that this is what you're going to get. And people take it to be that it is free, it is government money. We lose the connection that this is tax that left our pocket, went to government and is coming back to us.
Right.
So you need to decide how your tax is going to be used. You need to see that I paid tax of 100 shillings, and if my child is going to school and receiving this, it's actually worth it.
Worth it.
It is worth the while.
All right.
So that is what we are going to miss if October, the pilot is still on. We do not know the results of the pilot, but our goose is cooked in the sense that in January, we have to implement it.
All right. Dr. Joan, and even as you respond to that, maybe also address the spirit, or what informed the spirit of reforms in terms of what went wrong with the 844 system and what will this new education curriculum solve?
So let me deal with the two issues, one and then the other. First of all, curriculum reform by its nature does not depend on what has gone wrong and what has gone right.
All right.
Curriculum reform is based on the changing needs of the society. Just like when we brought 844, we didn't bring 844 because the previous system, something was wrong with the previous system. But the demands of the society then required that we move to a little more practical approach to learning, which unfortunately we again deviated from. Now, international UNESCO standards and others require that at the very worst, you review your curriculum after every 5 years. We last reformed our curriculum in 1985. We reviewed our curriculum last in 2003. In 2008, after the 5 years, there was an attempt through the Odhiambo Commission task force, which went throughout the country, did a wonderful job, and produced a wonderful report through a consultative process. And incidentally, our approach to the new curriculum is largely based on the Odhiambo task force. Now, in between, I don't know what happened. Then we went into a lull. Now we are doing 14 years with the same curriculum, no review, and when we revived the process, I would say that was about 2013, you know, before I joined KICD, the process started. And the kind of engagement that the Ministry of Education and KICD has had with various stakeholders has been massive. And my feeling is that if we continue with the kind of debate that we have, then this country is going to stay for 20 years without a new curriculum because of the perceptions of involvement, because if we were to display the kind of stakeholders involved that we have had in this country is massive. We have had two national conferences at KICC. One was to present the needs assessment that we conducted throughout the country, where Kenyans said they wanted the education system to improve, to address issues of values, issues of ethics, technical subjects, 21st century skills, etc., etc. Then, after that, we went and developed the basic education curriculum framework. Once this was ready, of course, we do this in consultation with various stakeholders. We have a steering committee that represents a cross-section of Kenyans. We again came for a national conference at KICC and presented the basic education curriculum framework. And Kenyans told us, this is good, go ahead and move on with the process.
Right.
As KICD, with the technical experts that we work with, we went ahead and did what we call scope and sequencing. That is, the stage-by-stage learning. We then went ahead and developed the designs. And for the first time, we decided that before this curriculum is moved to the next level, we go for a pilot. Now, let me now explain the component of the pilot. When you're doing a curriculum reform pilot, it is not like an academic research pilot, where you identify some schools, you go and do your research, then move back, analyze it, and let the schools weigh it, and then once you've done it, then you take it to the public, and then you go back to the school. Because once you start a pilot, and by the way, we are doing pilot in all the counties in this country. Once you start the pilot, it is not from what I would call an ignorant point of view. The pilot is already based on what has been synthesized by the experts, by the teachers. By the way, we use the teachers to handle part of the process, to see what needs to be improved. Now, when you start the pilot and move the materials to these schools, don't forget these learners are learning. We are not using them as guinea pigs.
Right.
So you cannot use them and stop and say, now we go back. They go back to the old curriculum. When we started the pilot, in August, before the end, we closed school last year, we did what we call midterm evaluation. We analyzed this during August, where you see the areas that need improvement. You don't analyze it that there's something that is outrageously wrong that is going to stop learning, then you go back. Now, after we did the midterm evaluation, we have since improved on the learning materials. We have since improved on our engagement with the teachers. So as we are going into the third term, we have taken the new materials that they're using for the third term to improve from what we had. So what we're doing now is we're doing the final evaluation of the pilot. It doesn't mean that we are going to come up and tell you this is obviously wrong, we can't do it. No, we are doing mentorship. As you do the pilot, you also help the teachers improve on what needs to be improved.
All right. Just hold it there and take a few calls. Mike is calling in from Mary this morning. Mike, very briefly, your comment or question, please.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, Mike. We can hear you.
Michelle, good morning. My views and opinion is that it's not a question of the curriculum or viability or inviability. Our education system is suffering the same ailments that have bedeviled all our institutions. That is corruption. We have taken everything business-wise and seriously. And these businessmen are what is killing our institutions, including the education that we are talking about here. Madam, if we can look at education from any other direction without letting the entrepreneurs infringe in it and interfere with it for the maximization of their profits, we have the best education curriculum. That goes for hospitals, that goes for roads and the contractors and every water. Thank you very much.
Asante sana. That is a Mike calling in from Mary. We'll be addressing that in just a moment. We also have Ndeto calling in this morning. What's your question or comment, please?
Hello.
Go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay. I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Hello.
Go ahead, Ndeto. We can hear you. What's your question?
Okay, thank you. I'm very happy about the conversation that is ongoing. Yeah. Now, my question is I'm worried in the manner in which the piloting is taking place. At times, we are not sure of, even me as myself as a head teacher, we are not really informed on what is going to happen. And I guess the education system we have in Kenya, the one we used to have, the 844 system, it is not a bad one. The only challenge is the implementation and the funding of it. So, Hello.
Yes, all right. I get the gist of your question, and we seem to have a bit of a communication problem. Perhaps you could turn down the volume of your TV, but let's address those concerns because we do not have very much time. And I'd like to finish with you, Jonathan, before I give closing comments to Dr. Juan. So we have this petition or an application that filed in the Mombasa High Court seeking to shelve the implementation of this program. And we've heard there from the two callers saying there doesn't seem to be a big problem with our current 844 system. It's just the implementation and matters of corruption coming in. But Dr. Juan also brings in an important point. The pilot is already ongoing. Cannot use these students as guinea pigs. They are learning as this process continues. So how then do we approach this quagmire, seemingly, that we find ourselves in? Are we going to have a section of students for the next 5 years continuing with the 844 system and the others already in the pilot continuing with the 2633 system?
Not really. As Dr. Juan rightly pointed out, as an individual parent myself, as a stakeholder in the education process, I have been involved. I have attended to the process since it commenced up to where it is now. Where there is a gap to the public is in the form of sharing the information and making people feel part of the process. But then also with the petition that is being filed in the court, I think the citizen has a right to get his interpretation of what the court thinks of it, but you know, it cannot be that the process be stopped because a single individual thinks he was not sufficiently involved when other people were involved sufficiently. But then also his assertion that this is heavy with content is neither here nor there, because within the framework for the curriculum that has been provided and is in the public, is that there are pathways that are provided for, that children are able to take what will be the core subjects and other areas of interest, including their talent that can be nurtured through the system. So we just need to be sincere with each other, invest ourselves and our resources into making the process work and not stifling it.
Stifling it, because there's no question as to whether we should be moving forward in terms of reforms. Dr. Juan, now we're out of time, so your closing comments very briefly.
I think the main thing is that for all of us to see how we can make the system better. Now, it is not true that the content is loaded. Actually, we have drastically reduced the content for learners in early years. The part that we have reduced, for example, in lower primary, the learning areas from 11 to 9. And within the 9, we call them activities, not learning content, so that children can enjoy being in school. When you go to the senior school, where we have expanded what we call pathways, we have created tracks so that if somebody has talent in sports, they can be given opportunity to go into sports. If somebody wants to go in technical subjects, so we have expanded space for learners so people don't feel excluded from the learning system. So if that is what, I don't want to talk about matters in court, but we'll see the areas that will be.
And perhaps an important question, very briefly once again, very many teachers calling in saying they do not have any information about this. How is that going to be addressed?
Incidentally, we are using 10 schools in every county for the pilot. And the pilot is still confined in early years. That is 2 years of pre-primary and the lower primary. There are teachers who probably in secondary school who are in upper primary, because we want to handle the curriculum gradually. We don't want to take everything and ram down the Kenyan thoughts. We'll be doing it stage by stage. And as we go out into teacher capacity building in November, everybody will get to know.
Information will be available. All right. Many thanks for speaking to us. That is Dr. Julius Juan, Director of the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, as well as Jonathan Wasaya, who is an education expert, speaking matters education in the country. Many promises being made with regard to education reforms beginning January 2018. But that conversation brings us to a close on this morning's edition of Weekend Express. Many thanks for your feedback this morning. My name is Michelle Ngelej. Have a wonderful morning. See you again in the afternoon at Weekend at 1.